Hi everybody, my name's Dave. Thanks for joining me, and tonight we're going to do the question and answer session. Now, 2 questions is all I've had. Now, those 2 questions are quite long answers. This is the longest text I've ever had to print out, so one of them is quite a lot longer than the other one. Hopefully it'll generate more questions and you'll be able to send me some questions to Jackaroo channel at duck.com. That is D-U-C-K, duck.com. And I will get them in my email. Before I start, I did consult an expert on this, and he didn't want to appear on the video or have his voice on the video, so I'm going to read out his answers here. I've added a little bit of my own, just some text and drawings and stuff, but not much. Mainly this is from him. Have you ever replaced the front left side CV drive shaft? The one on mine and the outer bearing cap is loose and it wiggles in the diff. How is this fixed? The first issue here is with variables. Firstly, which is your left as you look from the driver's seat or back at the car from the front? The next question is, do you have shift on the fly, torque on demand and or manual lock-in hubs? Obviously, if you have none of these, it becomes a whole lot easier of a job to do. We have to assume that they're talking about from the driver's seat, which makes a big difference. Also, we would assume that at least shift on the fly is fitted, maybe manual hubs. First of all, the differential is offset from the center line, so the left-hand drive shaft is longer. Also, there's shift on the fly and torque on demand to deal with. So let's break this down into easy-to-chew chunks. The issue here is of a loose drive shaft that wiggles in the diff and the outer bearing cap falls off. That means that either the inner bearing or the inner oil seal has failed. If the bearing has collapsed, there will potentially be metal parts in the differential, which will be required to be removed before using the differential. Luckily, it's a front differential and it's not normally engaged. I would suggest draining the oil and checking the drain plug for metal and then a thorough cleaning out of the differential interior. Well, we're going to drop the differential anyway. You're going to have to. If this bearing is intact, I would still drain the oil and check the plug for metal components just in case. The bearing is most likely the cause. Here is the thing. These parts are cheap, so if you're changing one end, change the other end too. I can see the logic in this. The logic in this is if you're going to change them, you might as well change everything. The cost of a pair of wheel bearings is minimal, $8 or $9 each if you got the right place. The cost of the inner bearing, minimal, $8 or $9 if you got the right place. The bearings that you've got probably have markings on them. The oil seal, a few dollars. You're probably talking about $50 tops to replace it all. So what I would do while I was in there, I'm going to discuss this later on, but if you have manual locking hubs, I would use this as an excuse to clean out the grease and reinvigorate with new grease. I'd use it to drain the differential and the shift on the fly if you have it, and put new oil in them. I'd also do the rear differential and the transfer box. It is what it is. You can do whatever you want to do. This is what I would do. And also, while I've got the front differential off, I would put a locker in there. I have a automatic locker, and I wouldn't put an auto locker in the back. And I've got one in the front. And yes, it clunks when it goes around corners. That's a bit uncanny, but once you're used to that, it's not a big deal. It costs about $400 or $500 for a front locker. Put one in. It's an open diff. It'll give you peace of mind and it'll get you out of most situations. Mine has. The bearing is most likely the cause, but here's the thing. The parts are cheap, so if you're changing one end, change the other end too. The differential bearing with the oil seal are on their own. However, inner and outer wheel bearings support the drive shaft, so change these as well. Differential oil seal is what keeps the differential oil in the differential, stops it running down the drive shaft. There's also another oil seal at the bottom of the drive shaft, mainly to keep the grease and dirt out of the hub. Change them all. You're in there, you've got it all off, you might as well change them. This is also a good time to inspect the splines on the drive shaft, the CV and the rubber boots, and replace as required. Shift on the fly, torque on demand on a manual locking hub. All these systems are just in the way of removing the transmission, especially the shift on the fly. There are 2 electrical connectors and some vacuum hoses to remove. Also, the shift on the fly has gear oil in it, so you might be better draining it first. On reassembly, it is a good time to put in new oil. Manual locking hubs can be removed easily. It is a good time to clean them out and renew the grease. There are several hex head screws, and removing them so with the locking hub unlocked so the wheel's freewheeling. That is the better option, because when you take the gear wheel out of the hub and the spring, they'll come out with it. You've got to be careful putting them back in. You'll know when you've got it right. Just keep trying until you get it right. I don't think there's too much to remove in there. Now, manual locking hub removal. MLHs are easy to remove, but a bit harder to reassemble. Just undo the 8 or so screws on the front. Mine is not Isuzu hubs. They are different, but the principle is the same. Mine are Aisin Warner hubs. After removing the cover assembly, there may or may not be a paper gasket in there to keep the dirt out as well as the grease in. Just be careful with that paper gasket, otherwise you'll have to make a new one or buy a new one. Once you have secured the paper gasket, the inner sprocket assembly and spring should come away with the front cover, and that is all is required for now. Shift on the fly by removal is dealt with inside the differential removal. Removing the front differential. Jack up the car and use axle stands. They're not called jack stands. That's an American term, and they're not jack stands, they're axle stands. They stand with a V in them at the top to fit around an axle. They're not jack stands. Remove both front wheels. Remove the drain plug to the differential oil. Remember to inspect the magnet in the plug for metal. Ensure that the differential housing is held up by the jack. So don't take the jack out, leave the jack in holding it up. Remove the brake caliper fixing bolts. Use the hook to hang the calipers. You get a couple of metal hooks, you can get them from Aldi at the moment. You hang them on there, you hang the caliper on the hook, it doesn't stretch the rubber hoses. Remove the anti-lock brake system speed sensor if fitted. Refer to the front brake section of the manual if you are having issues with the speed sensor. Remove the hub assembly, disc backplate and knuckle. Refer to the front brake section of the manual if required. Disconnect the knuckle and the suspension arm, referring to the suspension section of the manual if required. Remove the steering linkage and the pitman arm assembly, referring to the section of the steering of the manual if required. Remove the suspension cross member, probably 4 bolts. Remove the propeller shaft from the rear of the front differential, referring to the section if required, to this section if required. Now, if I believe rightly, if you've got torque on demand, that may have some sort of device on it. I think it stays with the drive shaft. Remove the small bash plate from the shift on the fly. It's got a little bash plate underneath it. Shift, take that off. Remove the breather hose from the shift on the fly. Remove the hose clip from the shift on the fly model. Disconnect the breather hose from the front axle drive axle tube and disconnect the housing shift on the fly model. Disconnect the vacuum hose from the actuator, shift on the fly model. Disconnect the shift switch connector, shift on the fly model. Remove the VSV assembly, shift on the fly model. There are diagrams for all of these things. Remove the mount bolt and nut. Remove the washer and spacer. Remove the mounting bracket and fixing bolts. These are for the differential. Lower the vehicle and disconnect the right hand front drive shaft from the assembly. Then remove the front axle case assembly and remove the left hand. Remove the front drive shaft assembly, right hand side. Before disassembly of the front hubs, make sure you're in 2-wheel drive. Jack up the front of the vehicle if you haven't already done so. Remove the disc brake caliper and hang it on the frame with the wires if you haven't already done so. Remove the cap bolts ×6. Remove the cap. Remove the circlip. They are not snap rings and shim. Why do Americans have to change the name of everything? The snap rings is the stupidest name. They are circlips, not snap rings. They don't go snap. Bloody Americans. I hate Americans. Remove the hub flange. Remove the disc lock screw. That's the countersunk screw. It screws into the hub assembly to hold the disc in place. It doesn't do much else. Not very big. Use a long bar, hold the wheel nuts and loosen and remove the hub nut. Now, the hub nut will have there's a slot in the drive shaft. Now the hub nut, the edge of it gets knocked into that to lock it. So you may have to lift that, you may have to prise it up, you may have to just turn it. I'm not sure what you have to do. But anyway, don't bend the bloody studs. Remove the hub and brake disc assembly in one. In the hub assembly, remove the ABS sensor ring if fitted. In the hub assembly, remove the outer bearing. In the hub assembly, remove the oil seal. In the hub assembly, remove the inner bearing. The oil seal is in front of the inner bearing. In the hub assembly, scribe a mark to the disc to hub. Clamp the hub and disc assembly in a vise using protective pads and remove the 6 retaining bolts. Place the hub on a suitable work surface and remove the studs by using a hammer and or heat. Whilst the front differential is removed, I would also do the following. Renew the oil seals, remove oils, greases as required, fit an auto locker in the front differential, renew anything that is worn or damaged such as CV boots, ball joints, etc. and renew all bearings and seals. And that's the end of question 1. Now question 2. What pressure should you expect to see on the Tech 2 for a correct working oil rail pressure control valve? Well, answer. Firstly, to be able to tell the pressures, you need to require the use of a Tech 2 tool. And I've got a picture of one of those. And there's a little bit about the AWPS. The AWPS or oil rail pressure sensor is located inside the rocker cover. Its job is to correctly monitor the oil pressure and send the information to the ECM, which then sends the information to the RPVC or rail pressure control valve, which regulates the oil pressure fed to the oil rail and back again and so on, round and round. If the AWPS or the RPCV are not functioning correctly, then this means that the engine will not start easily. In the manual is a section dedicated to the Tech 2 and the operation of pages, and pages 6E, 42 and 43 are an explanation of what these are. For new people, if the Tech 2 uses a proprietary format which is available prior to the OBD2 system, therefore the OBD2, even though it uses the same plug, will not work with the IC Trooper or series of cars. The normal oil rail pressure idle is between 3.5 and 5 megapascals MPa. The normal oil rail pressure at 2,500 RPM is between 4.5 and 10 megapascals. Desired oil rail pressure at idle is between 4 to 5 MPa. And the desired oil pressure at 2,500 RPM is between 5 and 9 MPa. I think that answers the questions. However, why not list the RPC figures as well while we're here? An RPCV should idle around between 17 and 22%. The RPCV at 2500 RPM should read between 18 and 27%. I hope really that these questions have generated more questions. If you've got questions, what I need you to do is send it to Jackaroo Channel, no one, at duck.com. Okay? And they'll come to my mailbox. I hope that I've answered them all with a specialist and to the best of our abilities. So I'll see you on the next video, which is me swapping out a rocker cover. And if you want to know why I'm swapping out a rocker cover, then you need to tune in on Friday probably. It's weather dependent. Thanks for watching. Bye now.